Why is it that some people are more successful than others? We know it's mindset. Just finished 4 days on Millionaire Psychology, Millionaire IQ, 9 countries involved. This is a skill that everybody works on last. If you want to become a millionaire, and your goal can be anything you want, the formula is quite simple. Think, act, do what other millionaires do, or whatever it is that you want. The way they think. Their mindset's different. The way they act, they have more persuasion, negotiation, people skills. They know more people. And what are they doing? What are they investing in? What businesses do they have? So let's talk about it.
Maximize your influence. Kurt Mortensen is the author of Persuasion IQ, Laws of Charisma, and the best-selling book, Maximum Influence.
Good to have you back. Kurt Mortensen here, podcast 542. Hope everyone's doing well, going out there, persuading with power, learning the skills, making a difference, not only in their own lives, but going out there and improving the world. Tell your family, friends, and enemies about the podcast. Can be found at iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and YouTube. You know why you're here. You're learning the skills, making it happen. Everything I talk about can be found at MaximizeYourInfluence.com. Let's dive right into it with the persuasion blunder.
Don't!
This has happened to me before. This happened to somebody else I was talking to this week. It keeps happening. It's those medical doctors. When you ask a doctor a question and they have to Google it, search it, that is a red flag. You're going to the expert. You want them to act like the expert. You could Google it, but a doctor, the expert, has to look up your symptoms. Not a good thing. Lose credibility. I mean, if they have to Google it, at least go out in the hallway, go to their office and Google it, have somebody else do it. But to do it right in front of you, A, you're losing credibility. B, you're like, why am I paying you? I could do that. And C, they're phubbing you. Remember phubbing? That's phone snubbing, but people can do it with a laptop, a computer, an iPad. When they ask that probing question and they lose the eye contact because they're looking it up or their phone buzzes, that's another challenge because doctors aren't trained in this. In fact, I've done a lot of training with doctors on bedside manner, connecting with people, because they found out the number one reason doctors get sued is because the patient didn't like them. Yeah, you're probably going to die. Yeah, you're going to lose that limb. Yeah, you're going to do this. I mean, we want some sugarcoating now and then. We want some hope now and then. And I get the legal issues, but you could still present not just the worst case scenario, but best case scenario and still give the patient hope. So think about this with the people you're talking to, whether it be an online call or face-to-face. Are you losing eye contact? Are you looking up things that you should have looked up before that meeting? I had a colleague once that we'd have these big meetings. They were the expert in their field, in their area, in their department, and they were asked a question. They would look it up. All right. Before the meeting, not during the meeting. After the meeting, not during the meeting. Because you can say things like, let me crunch some numbers on that and I'll send you an email and search it later. Your credibility's on the line. If people don't trust you, if you don't have credibility, why would they do business with you? And on the flip side, when you're accepted as the expert, have the credibility, there's very little persuasion resistance. Just saying, just putting it out there, more eye contact, more connectivity and bedside manner. Every once in a while, I guess you could say, I don't know, but maybe you could say, that's a great question. I want to double check something. Let me look at the numbers. Can I send you an email? Can I send you a text? At least say face and don't do it in front of them. Just saying, just putting it out there. The person I was talking to that went through the same experience is not going back to this doctor. It was their first time there. She had a lot of questions, and the doctor Googled them. Now, I'm not sure if it was Google or what the search engine was, but you get the picture. Which takes us to listener email.
Oh, boy!
It says, Kurt, I was listening to Millionaire Psychology, and the topic of learned optimism came up. But I've also heard the term learned helplessness. Can you define those? Tell me the similarities, the difference, and how to go from learned helplessness to learned optimism? And it says Frank doesn't say a country, but we'll take it, Frank, so let's talk about this. But before we do, let's talk about the geeky, scholarly article. They do go hand in hand. This comes from Harvard Business Review and Teresa Amabile and Stephen Kramer. The title of this article is The Power of Small Wins. So this is for management. How do you motivate employees to do creative work? And the key was to go a step forward every day. So they had these workers do diaries, write things down, and they found that nothing contributed more to a positive inner work life, and they define that as positive emotions, good motivation, and the perception that they're actually making a difference, that they were critical to the performance of the department or the company. That when they had that mix, that the solution was progress and meaningful work. They found if a person is motivated and happy at the end of the workday, it's a good bet that they achieve something. It could be small, but if that person is disengaged, joyless, had setbacks, they weren't happy. Now, what's interesting, on the flip side, small losses, setbacks have an extremely negative effect. So the negative has much more effect than the positive. And that's true in real life. Someone giving you $100 has some positive feedback, but not as much as the negative feelings of losing $100. They're not equal. So their solutions: set clear goals, short-term goals to create a sense of progress and accomplishment, something they can accomplish every day. And I've always said this: small, manageable, bite-sized pieces, smaller goals are more motivating or more exciting to cross off your list to accomplish than one big, huge weekly, monthly, or annual goal. Provide the resources. I'll add tools to ensure the employees have the necessary time and resources to complete those tasks. Recognize achievements. Regularly acknowledge and celebrate small wins to boost morale and motivation. Minimize setbacks. So ahead of time, identify and address potential obstacles that could hinder progress. Solve them ahead of time. Let them know what to do when that happens. And final one, encourage meaningful work. Help others, help yourself, help employees see the value and impact of their work to keep them engaged and motivated. So if you can implement these in your own life, these strategies, or with your coworkers, or as managers, you can create a more positive and productive work environment, leading to higher employee satisfaction and performance. And I wanted to go over that before I talked about learned helplessness and learned optimism, because you do feel helpless when you're not progressing, when you're feeling more failures than victories. So let me add a couple things to that. It goes back to Kaizen. It's a Japanese term meaning continuous improvement. It refers to the philosophy or practice that focuses on making small, incremental changes to processes, products, to yourself, to services, to your persuasion, to improve efficiency and quality. I mean, think about it. If you're improving and growing by 1% a week, improving your persuasion skills, or whatever it is that you do, that's over 52% in a year. Now, I'm not saying you're going to progress every day, but if you can progress every week, every month, that makes a difference. That's why it's so important to keep the score. Because when you do that, you can see that you have an upward trend. Now, what's an upward trend? Well, just like the stock market. If you took a stock and looked at it over a year, you had some good days, you had some bad days. But if most of the time that trend is going up, you've had more good days than bad days for that stock or for yourself. That's why in sales you keep the score, your close rate. That's how you know you're getting better, that you're improving. So what was the key here? When you look at positive inner work life, whether you're working solo or with the team, it's a mix of positive emotions, victories, you're motivated, and that you feel that you're making a difference, that you're helping out for the department, the company, your world, or the people that, let's say, you're even coaching. And the key there was those clear, specific goals and having continuous victories. Again, I'm not going to say you're going to have a victory every day. Hopefully you do, and you can focus on that more than the setbacks. So if you're feeling despair, hopelessness, you're not accomplishing much, that could trigger learned helplessness. And so if you work on these small little things, this can help you go to learned optimism. Now let's talk about that. That's our email of the week. And by the way, anything you send me at kurt@maximizeyourinfluence.com and we use on the podcast, you get influenceuniversity.com for free. That is my archive. That is my library. That is the home of the 52-week program. That is the place you get everything you need for advanced influence, persuasion, negotiation, even self-persuasion or mindset tools. So let's talk about this learned helplessness and learned optimism. They come from the same person, Dr. Martin Seligman. So he's considered the father of positive psychology. And what that is, it focuses on human strengths, well-being, and flourishing rather than focusing on mental illness and dysfunction. And he came up with both those terms, learned helplessness and learned optimism. Right now, he's a professor of psychology and the director of positive psychology at University of Pennsylvania. So there's a little background. Now let's talk about each one of these. Learned helplessness happens when someone believes they have no control over negative events in their lives. They tend to blame themselves, global factors, someone else. There's nothing they can do. It's not my fault. I always fail. I can't get anything to work. It's the economy. There's nothing I can do to fix it. So learned optimism, and that's a key here to think about. You can learn to be more optimistic. And we know with laws of charisma research that optimistic people are better persuaders, better leaders, more charismatic. Nobody wants someone that sucks the life out of them, always negative. So learned optimism, you're not finger pointing, you're owning up to it. You might say, well, it's not my fault. It's just a setback. I'm going to fix it. I'll get better. I'm going to learn from this. This is going to make me a better person. That only applies to this specific situation, not your whole life, is the difference. You see, with learned helplessness, you believe you're powerless to change anything negative. Again, nothing you can do. Why try? There's no hope. Learned optimism, which is critical to have as a leader and as a persuader. You believe you can overcome challenges and setbacks because they're temporary and something you can fix. So when you cultivate that learned optimism, and I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, you can do a little bit every day. That's why we talked about the article. It leads to more motivation, more resilience, better mental health, greater success in life. You live longer, you have better relationships, you're a better persuader, and you're healthier, and you attract better people in your life. Any one of those can be a game changer for you. So he did the studies way back in the 60s, and of course back then they used dogs. And they would actually place these dogs in an area, and they would give them these annoying but harmless shocks. And the dogs learned they could stop the shock by pressing a lever. The other group of dogs were put in the same cage, but there was no control. They couldn't stop it. All these dogs had barriers, so they couldn't jump out of these cages. And one batch learned they could shut it off. The other batch learned helplessness. There was nothing they could do to shut it down. Then they were brought back to these cages where they could jump out at any time. And the first pair of dogs that learned they could hit the lever also learned they could jump out. But the learned helplessness dogs, even though they could jump out, they just sat there and took the shock. We also see this with elephants. You've probably heard this one before. Tie a baby elephant to a tree with a large chain, a large rope. It tries to escape, and it eventually gives up. And as it grows and becomes an adult elephant, they just put a little twine, a little string, a little rope they could break at any time, but the adult elephant never tries. Or more from the animal kingdom, a barracuda. It's a large fish that eats fish. They put this barracuda in this fish tank with a partition between the barracuda and the other side, which had tasty minnows. Barracudas love to eat these little minnows, and it tried to get at them. It tried to go through the barrier, hit its face, its snout, and just gave up. Eventually, they would remove this partition, and these minnows were bumping into the barracuda, and the barracuda would starve to death because it gave up, it wouldn't try. So let's talk about this learned helplessness, how to overcome it, and then move towards learned optimism. Remember, learned helplessness, I have no control of the situation. I don't even need to try. There's nothing I can do. I'm a failure forever. And we see this a lot in human nature where people try something once or twice and say it didn't work. I'm like, it didn't work for you. It's working for them. If you want to be a great athlete, a good musician, a great persuader, a great salesperson, there's a few failures along the way that you need to learn from. Just because you try it once doesn't mean it's not going to work in the long run. So ways to overcome learned helplessness: challenge and reframe your negative thoughts. If you find yourself thinking, I can't do anything right, counteract it with past victories, past successes. Take those negative thoughts that you're going to have. Everyone's going to have them. You can't just say, I'm not having negative thoughts. Have a positive thought ready to go. Something to focus on. Don't focus on the negative because you get what you focus on. Reframe it. Change your thoughts to something more positive. And just like the Harvard article, small achievable goals, small victories, whether it's hourly or daily, that you can have that you can see that you're growing, improving every day. If that doesn't work, get support. Find a positive family or friend that can give you new perspectives and encouragement, help you look at your victories, and empower you in those down times. Another thing you do is positive reinforcement. When you do have that victory, that small gain, treat yourself. Even if it's just crossing it off your list, eating a treat, going out in the sun, calling your favorite friend, watching a funny video, just little rewards along the way can be very, very helpful. And for some, any type of relaxation technique, meditation, deep breathing, yoga, visualization can really improve that mental resilience. And I'd add get more sleep if you need to, get more exercise if you need to. That can all help your mindset. So as we start doing that, we start shifting towards learned optimism. Let me say it again, you can learn to be more optimistic. But remember, learned optimism, you're trying to cultivate a positive outlook and a hopeful attitude. Now, what's an attitude? It comes from your expectations. And when you're optimistic, you have positive expectations, which gives you a more hopeful, positive attitude. Even when you face a setback, that's the difference. Learned helplessness, I'll give up, why try? No, I'm optimistic. It's just a challenge. I'll get by it. I'll learn from it. I'll grow from it. I'll get better. I can do this. I can improve it. If they can do it, I can do it. As Dr. Martin Seligman says in his book, by the way, is Learned Optimism is developed through conscious practice and changing one's thinking. So how do we do this? So we talked about how to move away from learned helplessness. Now we're moving into learned optimism. Surrounding yourself with more positive, optimistic people and spending less time with the negative people. Another interesting one that's mentioned is gratitude. Having a gratitude journal and seeing that, no, more positive things are happening in your life than negative things. If you could write down 3 things you're thankful for, you're grateful for every day, that changes the game. You're like, I've got a lot of blessings in my life. I got a lot of good things going on. And it helps you focus on the positive instead of the negative. And it gives you more optimistic outlook. Take a look at that attitude. Remember, attitude comes from expectations. What are you really expecting throughout the day? To be late for work, to get cut off, for them to say no during your presentation, to walk out during your speech, to say no at every turn? No, what are you expecting? Because let me just say this again. I've said this before. When you feel influential, you are more influential. If you're focusing on all the negative things that could happen during a presentation, during a negotiation, that's probably going to happen. And I found out through research and talking to thousands of salespeople that if you're really concerned that a certain objection is going to come up, it usually does. You're kind of manifesting the objection you don't want. Kind of interesting. Go to the archives if you want to know more about that at maximizeyourinfluence.com. But have better expectations. And that's also a function that we talked about, surrounding yourself with more positive people, visualizing the success, not focusing on the failures that could happen. Because when you think about worry is negative goal setting. That's what we're talking about here. I saw one study once that 90% of things we worry about, we can't change. There's nothing we can do about it and probably won't even happen. Also, going back to that article, have goals. I love them, but smaller, manageable, bite-sized pieces, achievable goals, something you could do hourly, daily, where you can feel good, feel confident, have a sense of progress. And I would add to that I would make sure you have a victory every morning. What's your victory? 10-minute walk, 20 push-ups, a cold shower, make your bed. What's your small little thing in the morning you can do? Doesn't have to be a lot. Really, 10-minute walk, 20 push-ups. Cold shower takes a little more effort, but man, you feel good after doing that. Something I definitely recommend. Every morning, start the day off with a victory. It might even be what we talked about, 3 things you're grateful for. And final one, moving from learned helplessness to learned optimism, focus on solutions, not the problems. Remember, what you focus on tends to happen. If you're focusing on all the problems, you're probably going to get more problems. Focus on the solutions. So when you're faced with a problem, a setback, shift your focus. All right, what's wrong here? Who are other people that have fixed this? Who can I recruit to help me fix this? What steps can you take to improve the situation and work towards that solution? Now, if you can do this, move away from learned helplessness towards learned optimism. Again, you're going to be happier, healthier, accomplish more, sell more, be a better persuader, be a better person, have better relationships, improve your health. You know the drill. So there you have it. Something to think about as we're getting ready for a new year. Take a few things we talked about with Learn Helplessness, get rid of those, and add a few towards Learn Optimism. And have those daily victories, the daily goals you can accomplish. Keep the score, keep track, and see on those bad days, maybe you didn't have a victory. You can see overall that week, that month, that year, you are improving and getting better and making a difference. This is podcast 542. The links, the information you need is all at maximizeyourinfluence.com. In fact, if you go there or take a look at the email, you'll get the link for Millionaire Psychology, how to start thinking, acting, and doing what other successful people, what other millionaires are doing. This is the skill that everybody works on last. They should be working on it first. If you're wondering what's taking so long to be successful, to achieve your goals, it's what we talked about. So do it, make it happen, work on your mindset, what I call self-persuasion. Become a better influencer, better negotiator, better person, and go out and persuade with power.